So you're looking for a truck, an electric truck maybe? Well, we're about to go from like no options at all to three very good but very different options. And I'm talking about that Rivian R1T, the Cybertruck, and the Ford F-150 Lightning. We're gonna leave that Hummer out of this one. I don't know, I guess I'm just still a little mad at GM for giving us that flaming pile of flamingo turds, also known as the H2.
It is the single most embarrassing vehicle a human being can drive on today's roads.
I mean, shame on you, GM. Anyway, moving on. So which one is that sweet middle bowl of porridge with that extra dusting of brown sugar? Well, it kind of depends, so let's take a look. All right, so let's do a quick overview of these guys. I don't know, like a round of speed dating, I guess. By the way, speed dating, is that real? Is that a real thing? Kind of seems like a movie thing, right? I don't know, whatever, doesn't matter. First up, the Rivian. So I'm sure you've heard of these guys, even though they are literally brand new and have yet to deliver a single vehicle, but they're for real. Yep. So they're more or less backed by this tiny little company called Amazon, and after several delays, deliveries are finally about to start. Next up, the Cybertruck. All right, so you've probably already made up your mind on this thing just based solely on the styling. And look, if you hate how it looks, you're probably just looking elsewhere no matter how good it is, but we'll get into that shortly. So last, but definitely not least, is that Ford F-150 Lightning. By far the most traditional, well, like truck on the list. It's much more of a truck that happens to be electric than an electric truck, if that makes any sense. All right, so let's start off with the styling, and man, we got some very different looks here, to say the least. On one side, we've got that Ford F-150 Lightning that, well, it looks pretty much like your run-of-the-mill F-150, right? I mean, I'd be willing to bet that your average dude or dudette would have no idea that this thing is electric. That is, until it starts moving without making any noise. But like, that's not necessarily a bad thing, though. Like the F-150, it's a good-looking truck, and Ford's got some big plans for this electric fella. They're trying really hard to make it easy for people to switch, and keeping that styling familiar is probably a pretty solid way to do that. Now on the opposite side of the spectrum, we're looking at this crazy Cybertruck. You guys remember the reveal of this thing? I mean, literally jaw-dropping. You either loved it or hated it. There is no middle ground when it comes to what people think of the styling of this thing, right? Personally, I happen to like it, but I would have no argument with you if you hated it. I really wouldn't. You do gotta admit though, there's literally nothing else on the road like this thing, period. I mean, if you're looking for something crazy different, Tesla's got a truck for you. So that leaves us with the Rivian R1T. And they may have just hit the sweet spot here. Look, they didn't try to redefine and reinvent what a truck can look like the Cybertruck's doing, but they also took some interesting styling risks, kind of unlike the Ford. What they ended up with is a relatively conservative shape with some very interesting design elements. I mean, it looks like a truck, but it also looks like a Rivian, if that makes any sense. Look, if Patagonia or North Face decided to make a truck, it might end up looking something like the Rivian. The Cybertruck is probably, I don't know, more like some obscure Japanese techwear brand that I'm just nowhere near cool enough to even know about, let alone pronounce. And the Ford, well, Brooks Brothers all the way. Bottom line, styling-wise, I think we may be giving the win to Rivian, but what's really cool about this trio is that there's really something for everybody. Okay, so now let's talk about range. And it's hard to talk range without talking price, so we're gonna take a look at both here. Starting with the Ford, the entry-level model is gonna start at about 40 grand, and it's gonna come with what Ford claims is about 230 miles of range. So if you step up to the larger pack and the regular version of the truck with the XLT trim, that's gonna get you about 300 miles of range, starting at about 53 grand. So about that range. So while Tesla generally states the range as like the absolute highest theoretical number that you'll never actually see in the real world, Ford seems to be downplaying the range a little bit. I mean, word has it that the range Ford is advertising, well, that range is with 1,000 pounds of load in the truck, meaning the actual range for the top trim is probably closer to 400 miles than it is 300 miles. I mean, not bad, Ford. All right, moving on to Rivian. The R1T with options. It's gonna set you back about 75 grand, and that is with the base battery pack. That base battery pack, the EPA is estimating about 314 miles of range, meaning you should be able to get about 300 miles in regular driving. You've also got that option to step up to what Rivian's calling the Max Pack. For an extra 10 grand, it's gonna add a bunch of range. EPA numbers are not out for this thing, but Rivian's claiming 400 miles of real world usage, and I think they're probably right. EPA is probably gonna come in somewhere around 420 on this, I would think. Very solid, Rivian. Good stuff. Okay, last but certainly not least is that Martian dune buggy we are calling the Cybertruck. This thing will be available in 3 trims, a single, double, and triple motor configuration. So the entry-level single motor is going to start about 40 grand and have a 250 mile range. If you step up to that dual motor, it's going to cost you a little bit, 50 grand starting price, but it's going to have a range of 300 miles. And on top, you got that tri-motor option. We're talking 70 grand, and Tesla's saying it will achieve, now get this, 500 miles of range. And if that's true, that's actually pretty amazing. All right, let's talk performance. We're gonna take a look at acceleration, obviously, but we're also gonna take a look at payload. I mean, it's a truck. You're gonna wanna carry some stuff, right? So let's see how much you can. All right, so the Rivian and Cybertruck, well, they're just stupid fast. I mean, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat fast. All right, so it's been reported that the Rivian's motor is good for about 800 horsepower, 900 pound-feet of torque, and the numbers aren't available for the Cybertruck yet, but I bet we're someplace very close to that 800, 900 number. So get this, you actually have the option to choose between 2 800 plus horsepower electric trucks right now. Think about how freaking crazy that sentence would have sounded 20 years ago, right? Anyway, that leaves the Ford, and it's not exactly slow either. I mean, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. And it's got plenty of power, 563 horsepower, 775 pound-feet of torque. Look, as long as you're not planning on sharing acceleration reaction videos on YouTube, this thing is gonna be plenty quick. All right, so they're all fast, but how much can they tow? So the Ford can tow 10,000 pounds and can manage a 2,000 pound payload. All right, the Rivian's close. It can tow a little bit more at 11,000 pounds, but it's got a slightly lower payload capacity at 1,760 pounds. And just crushing everybody is this Cybertruck with the ability to tow 14,000 pounds, and the payload, 3,350 pounds, 3,350 pounds. That's awesome. So it's pretty clear here. The truck performance king here is the Cybertruck. 911 speed while being able to tow a Taco Bell. Go ahead and flex a bit, Tesla. You get the W here. All right, let's move on and let's talk charging. So no surprise here, the Cybertruck with the Tesla supercharger network has got to be the hands down winner, right? Look, you love Tesla, you hate Tesla, there is no denying that their supercharger network is pretty amazing and is just so far ahead of everyone else. It's kind of nuts. Look, pair this charging network with the potential 500 mile range and you've got pretty much the entire country covered. And they work. Look, it's all proprietary, so obviously only Teslas can use it, and it's just awesome. Next up is the Rivian, and I'm happy to see they're taking a page out of Tesla's playbook here, right? So they're rolling out their very own high-speed proprietary charging network, much like the supercharger network, what they're calling the Rivian Adventure Network. The plan is to have 3,500 charging stations over 600 sites, and they're hoping to get this all done to like 2023. I hope they can do it. Now, so much of this still needs to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised if they fall a little bit behind schedule, but it is very promising, and I think they're on the right path. It's just not Tesla level yet. All right, last and unfortunately least in this category is the Ford, and like all other car makers, Ford is letting other companies solve this charging for them. All right, how do I put this? I'm trying really hard not to be negative here, but these networks are total garbage. I mean, worse than a dumpster fire. In fact, I just use your own analogy because I can't really come up with something awful enough that accurately describes how terrible and embarrassing these other networks are. Trust me. Look, most of these charging stations are just straight up broken with no fix in sight. And the majority of the ones that actually work, they kind of like barely work, if that. I mean, look, just ask anybody that's tried a road trip in anything but a Tesla. It's gross, and I feel like I need a shower. All right, so when can you pick up one of these bad boys? Well, first up is the Rivian, with delivery set to start like any day now for those special launch edition fellows, right? Regular deliveries are set to ramp up starting in January, assuming there's no more delays. Next up is the Lightning, with deliveries set to start this spring, and I kind of believe him. Look, Rivian's really never done this before, so some more delays would not exactly surprise me. Ford, on the other hand, they've been making trucks for 1,000 years, and the Lightning shares lots and lots of parts with the regular F-150, so manufacturing shouldn't really be an issue. Last up is the recently, once again delayed Cybertruck. So the new target date is the end of 2022 for the single motor version, with the other options coming sometime in 2023. And man, I really hope they can get this all figured out. I mean, look, this is a complex vehicle using yet to be realized battery technology along with brand new manufacturing methods because of these crazy materials. So where the Tesla Roadster's been delayed seemingly forever, I think the truck market is just way too important for Tesla. I've got to believe they're going to do everything possible to get these things rolling off the assembly line like quickly. All right, so that's that. And honestly, I think these are three very good options, and I could not fault you for choosing any one of these three. Personally, I'm glad we got a little bit of time to decide. Look, I love that the Ford isn't trying to reinvent anything. It's a truck, it's a good truck that happens to be electric. Good on you. On the other hand, there's something polarizing with that just ugly, beautiful Cybertruck along with 500 miles of range. And then finally, you got the Rivian that just might be the best of both worlds. Look, whatever you end up with, chances are you're gonna be happy.